Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the University of Adelaide's 3-Minute Thesis Final. I'd like to start by acknowledging and paying my respects to the Kaurna people, the traditional custodians on whose ancestral lands we gather today, and on which our North Terrace, Waite, Roseworthy and Theberton campuses are situated. As researchers and communicators, we recognise the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders peoples are the world's oldest communicators, sharing knowledge, stories and culture through language, art, song and dance for tens of thousands of years. We honour these enduring practices of communication and the ways they continue to shape our understanding of connection, meaning and community today. My name is Laura Parry and I'm the Pro Vice-Chancellor of Research Excellence here at the University. And to everyone watching online, and to those here today with me in person, thank you so much for coming along to what's going to be a really exciting event. The 3-Minute Thesis, or 3MT, is an international competition where our higher degree by research students present years of research in just 3 minutes. That's really quite a challenge. Now, the event started at the University of Queensland in 2008 and has since been adopted by over 900 universities across more than 85 countries. So it really is an international competition. The 3-Minute Thesis competition has also become a really important event in the university's Research Tuesdays speaker series, where our world-class academics share research breakthroughs and cutting-edge discoveries in really diverse fields of study, and on the second Tuesday of every month. The second Tuesday in September. And 3MT also exemplifies the goal of Research Tuesdays, making research more accessible and engaging for the broader community. And 3MT also provides a wonderful opportunity for our PhD students to hone their communication skills, share their research, and even win a cash prize. Tonight, we'll be selecting the University of Adelaide's 3MT winner, who will go on to represent the university at the Asia Pacific Finals. Dozens of research students in each of our 3 faculties vied for a place at these finals, and we're about to hear from 10 of the best. And I really would like to remind all the finalists today, you are all winners. But first, to explain the competition's guidelines and walk us through the housekeeping, please welcome our MC, Mabel Day.
Thank you, Laura. Hi, everyone. I'm Mabel Day, and I'm a PhD candidate studying chemical sciences here at the University of Adelaide. My research project investigates light-initiated degradation of pollutants. Fortunately, my 3-minute presentation on this topic landed me in first place last year. To tonight's participants, I know the nerves you're all feeling right now, and I wish you all good luck. Before we begin, I'll talk through the competition rules, review the judging criteria, and introduce our judges. There are some straightforward but challenging rules that our students must follow in the 3MT competition. You can read them all behind me. Presenters are allowed 1 static PowerPoint slide, 3 minutes of spoken word time, and themselves. No props, extra seconds, or songs allowed. There is also clear judging criteria, which includes comprehension and content, and engagement and communication. For comprehension and content, our finalists will be selected based on who best explains their research background and importance, who best describes key results, and who creates the clearest presentation for the general audience. Engagement and communication are also very important. Tonight's winner will be informative, but not so informative that their audience isn't curious to learn more. They'll speak colloquially, but not too colloquially that it trivialises their research. And they'll engage us throughout their 3 minutes. The usefulness of their presentation slide will also be considered. Sounds easy enough, right? Now that we understand the competition's parameters, I'd like to introduce our panel of judges. Judges, please stand as your name is announced. Associate Professor Richard Young is a Senior Research Fellow in the university's Adelaide Medical School and at SAHMRI. He heads the Intestinal Sensing Group within SAHMRI's Nutrition, Diabetes and Gut Health program. Welcome, Richard. Dr. Lucas Gershweiler is a lecturer of bioprocessing in our School of Chemical Engineering, who's dedicated to advancing the field of biomanufacturing through cutting-edge research and innovative teaching. Welcome, Lucas. Dr. Kate Sansome is a research fellow and lecturer in marketing at Adelaide Business School. Her research explores how brands communicate sustainability, engage in circular business practices, and navigate the ethical tensions of digital platforms. Welcome, Kate. Dr. Doreen Crumbeagle is the director of the Adelaide Graduate Research School. She is a recognised expert in operations, people, and project management, with extensive experience in working in academia. Welcome, Doreen. And lastly, Professor Laura Parry. More than tonight's host, Laura is also the Pro Vice Chancellor of Research Excellence. Welcome, Laura. And thank you all for being here tonight. This esteemed judging panel will choose one winner to attend the 2025 Asia Pacific 3-Minute Thesis Final. The judges' winner will receive a $3,000 cash prize. The runner-up will receive $1,500. There will also be a People's Choice Award winner, as chosen by the audience. After our 10 finalists have finished their presentations, a QR code will appear on the screen, and you'll be asked to cast your vote for your favourite presenter. The winner of the People's Choice Award will also receive $1,250. Lastly, here are some house rules. Make sure your phones are on silent until the voting begins. Please stay seated while the finalists are presenting and don't take any flash photos. Toilets are located in the building behind me. The best way to access them is to go through the doors you entered and follow the signs to stage left. Ask staff if you need directions. So let's get started. I will introduce each finalist and they will give their 3-minute presentation. After each presentation, an audience member or judge will ask the presenter a question and they will respond. Please save your applause until after the finalist responds to the question asked of them. After the presentation, the judges will step away to deliberate while the audience submits their votes for the People's Choice Award online. Finally, I will invite the finalists to stand and join me for the announcement of the winners. First up, I would like to invite Gerardo Urbina to the stage. Gerardo is from the Faculty of Sciences, Engineering and Technology and will be presenting Targeting Superbug DNA with the Power of Computer Simulations. Would you please join me to the stage?
100 years ago, antibiotics revolutionized the world. What used to be a death sentence became a treatable infection. Think, however, how sad it must have been for someone who lost their loved one to an infection just a few years before antibiotics became mainstream. Nowadays, we may find ourselves in a similar situation. On the left side of my slide, you can see an example of a superbug. This is what we call antibiotic-resistant bacteria. And superbugs are currently developing resistance to our best antibiotics faster than we can make new ones. So it is important that we find new ways to kill them before they kill us. Fortunately, groups like my research group are working in such alternatives. In the center of my slide, you can see in orange an example of an artificial DNA-like molecule that is able to bind to superbug DNA. By wrapping around it, it kind of chokes it, rendering it useless and killing the superbug in the process. However, to design these orange molecules, currently we rely on a trial and error strategy, where we make hundreds of them in the lab, we test them, only to find out that most of them don't even bind to DNA at all. So what can we do about this? For my research project, I proposed using something that we did not have 100 years ago, computers. What if instead of wasting valuable time and resources making hundreds of molecules that might not work, we simulate them on a computer, binding to DNA, and have the computer give us the top few candidates that we should actually be making? Now, before we can even dream of doing this, though, we need to make sure that any real-life experimental data that we have so far is both reliable and reproducible, because we don't want to feed our computer program wrong or biased information. For this reason, I've spent most of my PhD not programming, but in a lab, experimenting, comparing different techniques commonly used in the lab to assess this orange molecule's ability to bind to DNA. I was even lucky enough to get my hands on a device of which there are only 4 or 5 in all of Australia to validate my results. Now, with these experimental results in hand, I'm working on a computer program that allows me to predict, using a quick and cheap method, which of these molecules might actually bind to DNA and compare it to my experimental results. By putting all of this together, I hope to create a predictive model that might save a few years in the development of this technology for therapeutic uses. And while a few years might not make a big difference in the grand scheme of things, think about this. If your loved one were to die because the technology to save them was not ready yet, to you, that small difference would mean the entire world. Thank you.
Thank you, Gerardo. We'll now go to the audience for a question. If anyone has a question, please raise your hand and a member of staff will come around to you with a microphone if selected. Otherwise, a judge will ask a question.
Thank you so much. Can you expand on the device that you said you got that there were only a few of?
Thank you so much. So my research group uses a technique known as mass spectrometry, which allows us to see what is in a solution. In this case, when I have a solution containing those 2 DNA molecules, it allows us to ionize it and see what's exactly in the solution. So there are many mass spectrometers in the world. There are many in this university. But we have a relatively new one that allows us to see things at way more detail than any others we had before. And yeah, that's the device I was talking about. Thank you.
Thank you for your answer. Please join me in thanking Gerardo for his presentation. Next up, we have Ranjani Ragatham. Please join me on the stage. Ranjani is from the Faculty of Arts, Business, Law and Economics, and will be presenting Confidence in a Bottle.
Have you ever scrolled through your Instagram account and then you come across a post that looks like one of these? It's surprising how much content exists on social media that's talking about mental health in some aspect or the other. In fact, there are many consumer companies, including in the cosmetic industry, that are increasingly sharing content that depicts themes of mental health and well-being. But why are they talking about mental health? What exactly are they saying? And should we as consumers be concerned about this? My research explores how often these cosmetic companies talk about mental health in their promotional Instagram content. It also looks at the different narratives that they are sharing. I looked at the Instagram accounts of over 100 cosmetic brands to try and identify how many posts that were shared within a 2-week period contain narratives of mental health. I also looked at the different strategies that they were sharing. And I found that over 90% of brands use mental health as a way to strengthen their brand identity by forming an emotional connection with their audience. In a nutshell, they're using mental health as an intentional promotional tactic by implying that buying their product will help you improve your mental health. Less than 20% actually use it to spread awareness or advocate for better practices or treatments. I followed this up with a deep dive into the brands that share the most amount of mental health content to try and understand the common themes or narratives that they were sharing. And as you can see on the slide behind me, most brands are talking about improving your self-confidence, engaging in self-care practices, and surprisingly, mental health advocacy, although that last one is almost exclusively during World Mental Health Month. Understanding these themes are important because they help us understand the kind of idealized image of mental health that these brands are presenting and how that affects consumer culture. They also raise ethical questions on how these practices influence our perception of what it means to be mentally well. In the end, we should be asking ourselves, do we really want these brands to shape the way we look at our own mental health? Thank you.
Thank you, Ranjani. Does anyone in the audience have a question?
Thank you. Amazing talk. I was wondering if there were any key differences between brands that genuinely care or those selling products that you saw in your research.
The key difference is consistency. The brands who seem to genuinely care actively and regularly talk about mental health, and they provide practical resources, they provide information, versus brands who are just using it as a promotional tactic, don't really engage in the practical side of sharing resources or information.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let's give Ranjani a round of applause. Our next presenter is Danielle Bailey from the Faculty of Health and Medical Sciences. Danielle has a special delivery, blood transfusions for tiny babies. Come on up, Danielle.
This tiny foot belongs to a baby called Eddie. He was born extremely early, months before his expected due date. Babies like Eddie can be very sick and often need lots of different medical support to grow and get stronger. In fact, over 90% of babies born extremely early will receive a red blood cell transfusion. We can imagine a red blood cell as a delivery truck, carrying oxygen packages to important parts of the body, like the brain. Hemoglobin, the protein that binds to oxygen, is like the truck driver. A transfusion gives more delivery trucks and drivers, which means more oxygen can be transported to the brain. Currently, doctors use broad criteria to decide when to give a baby a transfusion. This may include how many days old the baby is, how sick they are, and their blood count. Using our analogy, this criteria is like counting the total number of delivery truck drivers, which is important, but without checking if the brain actually needs more oxygen. And this is a problem. Like any medical treatment, transfusions carry both risks and benefits. Transfusions improve oxygen delivery, but may lead to inflammation and other serious complications. That's why it's really important to make sure that every transfusion does more good than harm. And this is where my research comes in. I'm studying how transfusions affect oxygen levels in the brain and how we can use individualized measurements to guide transfusion decisions. We know transfusions improve oxygen delivery, but I want to know which babies truly need that extra oxygen and are ready to use it. To answer this, I place a small sensor on the baby's forehead that uses light to measure oxygen levels in the brain. Using this machine, we're able to calculate something called oxygen extraction, which tells us how much of the available oxygen in the brain is being used. So far, my results show that babies with a higher extraction before transfusion tend to have the biggest increases in brain oxygen levels afterwards. This means these babies may benefit the most from transfusion because their brains were already in need and ready to use that extra oxygen. So, why does this matter? Well, by measuring each baby's individual oxygen needs, we can target transfusions more precisely and improve outcomes for babies like Eddie.
Thanks so much for your presentation. Now let's turn to the audience for a question.
Thank you very much. I wonder if you could explain where you sourced the blood from.
Source the blood for the transfusions?
Yes.
So all the babies getting transfusions are getting transfused at the Women's and Children's Hospital. So the, blood bank that supplies the Women's and Children's Hospital is the blood that all the infants are receiving.
Great work, Danielle. Thank you. Now please welcome Shrestha Malik. Shrestha is from the Faculty of Sciences, Engineering and Technology and will present Battle of the Garden, Crops versus Weeds.
Imagine your garden is a battleground. On one side are your crops that are very precious to you. And on the other side are the unwanted plants or the weeds. These weeds are the sneaky invaders trying to steal food, water, and sunlight from your crops. And being the guardian angel of your garden for so long, all you have been doing is helping your crops win this battle by providing them with a powerful weapon, a herbicide. But now, there's a problem. As weeds are becoming more clever and resistant, it's like they have figured out a way to beat our crops. Herbicides no longer work, and we are left unarmed. The problem is bigger than it appears because weeds are not only limited to our gardens, they have already invaded over 40% of our farmland, and they cost our farmers about $5 billion every year. With the world population set to hit 10 billion by 2050, we have a serious question. How would we be able to feed so many people if the weeds keep winning and the crops keep losing? To address this question and to fight weeds, my PhD research focuses on identifying a new herbicide. To do so, I'm using a novel repurposing approach of turning failed antibiotics into new, powerful herbicides. Now, this may sound a bit like science fiction, doesn't it? But it's not. Let me explain how it works. In the past, our lab discovered striking similarities between bacteria and weeds. So just like antibiotics can target and kill bacteria, they can be redesigned to target and kill weeds. And it's working. Using this approach, we have already found a promising herbicide candidate, not by starting from scratch, but by leveraging past research. By carefully tweaking the structure of a failed antibiotic, we successfully transformed it into a potent weed killer. But the story doesn't end here. Now that we have a promising herbicide candidate, the next critical step is to test if it's safe for humans, for animals, and the environment. This breakthrough is not just a win-win for today, but a game changer to stay ahead in the fight against weeds. So next time any of you spot weeds in your garden, remember, the fight isn't over yet. But with science on our side, we are no longer unarmed. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Is there an audience question about this presentation?
Thank you very much for the presentation. There's already concerns about antibiotics generally getting into the ecosystem. So I wonder if you could address that issue in relation to your presentation.
That's a really good question. So here, there's a twist. The antibiotics we are using are failed antibiotics. They, at first place, did not went through the antibiotic discovery pipeline because they had no activity against the bacteria. So they are basically not even antibiotics. The other thing is safety is priority for us. So we do all kind of tests, including MICs, where we see if these compounds have activity against any soil microflora or in general human microflora. And also we do tests on human cell lines as well. So if there is any compound with any toxicity profiles, we get rid of them.
Let's hear it for Battle of the Garden, Crops vs. Weeds. Next up is Faculty of Arts, Business, Law and Economics student Caitlin Crawford. Caitlin will present Demystifying Bel Canto as an approach to classical voice pedagogy. Come on up.
How does a classical singer learn to sing? And how do they learn to perform art songs like Ave Maria? One of the best ways for singers to hone their craft is through taking individual vocal lessons. Unfortunately for classical singers, the field of classical voice performance and pedagogy, or how classical singing can be taught, is filled with controversy and confusion. This stems from the fact that vocal teaching is primarily an oral tradition. Additionally, the larynx, or voice box, is hidden away inside of the neck, which can make it difficult to work out exactly what's going on while singing. This means that there are many different, often contradictory, ways that classical singing can be taught, which can be confusing for singers. There is a term that is commonly used by classical voice teachers to describe their own teaching practices, bel canto. Bel canto literally translates from Italian as beautiful singing, but specifically can refer to the techniques of vocal production heralded as elite vocalism that arguably arose in the 17th century in Italy. However, the term bel canto is ambiguous, also being used to describe various musical styles, composers, and time periods. My PhD aims to demystify bel canto as an approach to classical voice pedagogy. After reviewing the written sources and conducting a systematic literature review, I found that there are countless sources which describe bel canto singing, but these sources often contain vague instructions or are personal statements of singing teachers. I then constructed an original definition of bel canto through extracting the most frequently occurring terms in 53 definitions of bel canto from a sample of these sources. In doing so, I distilled the following elements of bel canto vocal production: breath control, register equalization, chiaroscuro, which is a vocal tone with both brightness and depth, legato or smooth phrasing, vocal agility, and the messa di voce, which is an increase and then decrease in the volume of a single pitch. I am now working to synthesize or bring together the ways that the bel canto elements can be taught, according to historical and 21st century sources, as well as through interviewing experienced classical voice teachers. My research will result in a valuable resource for scholars, teachers, and singers alike, which defines what the elements of bel canto vocal production are and the different ways they can be taught, demystifying bel canto as an approach to classical voice pedagogy. Thank you.
Thanks, Caitlin. And now onto the question.
Amazing talk. Like any oral tradition, there's subtle variations based on regions and stuff like that. Do you think establishing a generalized term can lead to the degradation of like subtle changes in these definitions that have been developed by other people?
Yeah, it's a very good question. I think with my project, because I'm aiming to look at not just the way of teaching bel canto, but the ways, by speaking to, when I'm interviewing, I'm speaking to people from overseas, from Italy, France, Germany, United Kingdom, and United States, as well as Australia. I'm trying to get as many like little aspects of the tradition from all the places. But like you said, with any oral tradition, there are so many variations. So it's impossible in 4 years to get everything. But since there is no source that currently has these elements of bel canto and then, has interviews with teachers and the literature and bringing it all together, I think it's a great starting point. And then hopefully more research can come from that looks at those sub-traditions as well. But very good question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. And now we have Anae Kritzinger. Anae is a student of the Faculty of Sciences, Engineering and Technology, whose presentation today is Shining the Light Behind the Bottle from Fraud to Fatality.
Say you're traveling abroad and you're feeling a bit homesick. Then you spot that bottle of Penfolds or Yellowtail on the shelf and you want a little taste of home. Well, the truth is, there's a good chance that bottle has never even touched Australian soil. Wine fraud is more common than you think, and labels lie. Fake spirits can also contain methanol, a toxic alcohol that can cause blindness or worse. Just this year, more than 300 people have died from methanol poisoning after, unknowingly, consuming contaminated alcohol. Now, the problem is, if you want to test or authenticate your bottle, it needs to be opened up and a sample sent off to a chemistry lab. This takes time and destroys your sample. Here's where my research comes in. I use laser light to analyze these drinks. When a laser interacts with the sample, you get a signal back, a chemical fingerprint, telling you what's in it. This is called spectroscopy. And the good thing about lasers is, I do not need to open the bottle. I can go straight through the glass. However, when I send a normal laser beam through the bottle, the signal I'm getting back is mainly from the glass itself, especially if I'm trying to go through these dark green bottles that red wines are stored in. Now, here's where my PhD changes the game. I do not use a normal laser beam. I change its shape to form a donut. I also change the color of the laser as I'm taking the measurements. Now, all of these physics tricks allows us to completely bypass the glass and only obtain the signal from inside the bottle. So far, we've been able to authenticate Australian red wines, regardless of the bottle it comes in. We've also been able to detect methanol at concentrations less than 1%, which is well below the harmful level. Now, this technology is not limited to alcoholic beverages. Think about going through the packaging and analyzing olive oils, or perfumes, medications, or even explosives. But for you, standing in front of that shelf, it means that I can tell whether that bottle is really from Australia and if it's safe to drink. And we do all of this without breaking the seal and possibly sacrificing a real bottle of Penfolds. But more importantly, before anyone even takes a sip.
Great job. Let's see what the audience has to ask you.
That was a great presentation. What do you think the commercial sort of value of this would be? Would it be checking it when you buy it in the shop, or would you expect people to have their own, like where would you see it sort of fitting into people's lifestyles?
Yeah, of course. After all my reading, I want one in my back pocket to check. But now we're looking at online kind of processes. There's an article that says in well-known UK supermarkets, they found a lot of fake wines. So in the supermarkets, on a kind of conveyor belt, going through the bottles, and that's kind of what we're thinking. A lot of customs are probably also useful for law enforcement, etc. So we're looking into that. Yeah.
Thanks so much, Anae. Our next presenter is Kate Cheney, a student of the Faculty of Health and Medical Sciences. Today, Kate is presenting Cooking Up a Cure, the secret ingredient in beating leukemia.
Have you ever had a meal at a restaurant that was so good you wanted to recreate it yourself at home? You buy all of the ingredients, make a massive mess of the kitchen, and your dish, it looks perfect. But when you taste it, something just isn't quite right. It's missing the secret ingredient. This is how it feels for doctors who are trying to treat acute lymphoblastic leukemia, an aggressive form of blood cancer. Now, over the past decade, we've seen mild improvements in survival rates, but frustratingly, doctors are still missing something crucial. Currently, we look at a patient's age and their genomic subtype to determine what sort of treatment we should give them. But despite this categorization, patients respond highly variably, with up to 20% of children and 50% of adults experiencing a relapse of their disease. And why? Well, doctors must be missing this secret ingredient in their treatment recipe. I think that the secret ingredient is the gastrointestinal microbiome, a society of bacteria, fungi, and viruses that calls your gut home. The microbiome works in conjunction with our body. It helps us to digest food, fight disease, synthesize vitamins, and overall, remain nice and healthy. But when we have imbalances in the levels of good and bad bacteria that we house, we experience an inflammatory state that is known as dysbiosis. Clinical data has shown that patients with the disease acute lymphoblastic leukemia are experiencing this dysbiosis, this inflammatory state, because they have distinctly lower levels of good bacteria compared to people in the population who are deemed healthy. And my PhD work, using murine models generated with real-time Australian patient samples, has shown that microbiome dysbiosis both increases the aggressiveness of disease as well as decreasing its response to treatment, leading me to believe that each individual patient's microbiome composition is key to how they are going to respond to treatment. Currently, I'm honing in on a causal relationship between the microbiome and treatment, allowing me to investigate if in clinic we could implement microbiome screening as an additional tool alongside age and genomic stratification to triage patients into the most appropriate treatment protocol first time round. Alongside this, I'm also looking at the possibility of microbiome interventions, such as dietary changes and pre- and probiotics, to help increase the efficacy of the current standard of care treatments we use. Now that I have uncovered the secret ingredient to treating acute lymphoblastic leukemia, I'm going to be in the lab cooking up a cure. Thank you.
Thanks, Kate. Does anyone in the audience have a question about this presentation? Is there a judge's question today?
So we take fecal samples from the patients, we extract the microbial DNA, and we use 16S RNA sequencing.
Thanks again. Next up, we have Gusha Yildirim, a Faculty of Arts, Business, Law and Economics student. Gusha's presentation is called Adolescence and Nature, Connection Loading in Schools.
Have you seen the thousands of dead fish being washed up on our beautiful Adelaide beaches? They are dying because of the toxic algal bloom. How do you feel about this? The answer gives a clue about your emotional connection to nature. For many of us, that connection starts early, in childhood. Most children begin life with a strong sense of connection to nature, but as they grow up, their connection often fades. And by adolescence, it reaches its lowest point. For many adolescents, nature is out there, not part of their world. And it's something we should be concerned about because feeling connected to nature affects our well-being, helps us understand our place in the world, and navigate our actions, now and into the future. Well, where can this connection grow? Schools seem like an obvious place. Young people spend most of their time there, and environmental topics like climate change and sustainability are already part of the curriculum. But does this actually help them feel connected to nature? We are not sure yet. That's why I started working with high schools in South Australia to better understand how adolescents actually experience environmental education and how that relates to their connection to nature. So far, my survey of more than 800 students from 6 diverse schools has shown some patterns. What stood out is that 40% of students indicated a disconnection with nature. At the same time, 70% of students stated that they are very aware of environmental issues. But when I ask if they choose products with a low impact on nature, only 1 in 4 said yes. So that's the gap between knowing and actually doing. So maybe schools could help fill that gap. And my research is helping schools see how their programs are affecting their students' connection to nature. To get a sense of this, I asked students to describe environmental education in their own words. And some students said, skibidi. If you're not familiar, it's a Gen Z, Gen Alpha slang word. It can mean cool or bad or sometimes nothing at all, but in this case, it means bad. Because one of the students who wrote skibidi even wrote, I hate nature. So maybe skibidi says more than what it seems to, because the connection we desperately need is still loading. Thank you.
Thanks, Gusha. Now on to the question.
Thank you very much for a very interesting presentation. I'd just like to ask, was there a difference between the way the students connect with nature in rural schools versus urban schools?
The schools that I choose actually in the urban schools, in the city center or around it. So there is, I don't know the difference between rural schools because I'm not working with them. Yeah.
Thanks for your answer.
Thank you.
Our next presenter is Sachin Kumar from the Faculty of Science, Engineering and Technology. The presentation is titled, What If Your Thoughts Could Glow? Come join me on the stage.
Have you ever wondered what your brain is doing? Every thought that you have, every dream, every feeling, your brain is constantly sending out signals. Right now, the only way we try to monitor brain activity is by measuring electrical signals, but they only tell part of a story. To also see brain's magnetic activity, we currently rely on room-sized machines that require freezing temperatures to operate. They are big, bulky, and far from portable. What if we could also see brain's magnetic activity, not with massive machines, but something as simple as wearing a helmet? That's what my research is working towards. I use tiny particles of diamonds, not for jewelry, but because diamonds are the only particles in the world that can sense magnetic field with high precision at room temperature. Inside these diamonds are tiny gaps, little empty spaces that are surprisingly powerful. When I shine green light on them, they glow red. And this red glow changes with your brain activity. Now picture this. Wearing thousands of these glowing particles in a long flexible glass strand called an optical fiber, and building a helmet that can reveal your brain activity in a way we have never seen before. But here's a catch. If I put too many of these diamonds in the fiber, the glow gets lost, like trying to see through a dirty window. If I put too few, the glow is just too faint to see. My PhD is to achieve the perfect balance. I design fibers and test different ways to put diamonds inside this. My current results shows that one of our fiber design is able to preserve this red glow while maintaining a strong signal, a crucial step into making this vision a reality. Imagine what that would mean. A helmet that can help doctors see epilepsy in action, detect dementia earlier, and unveil the secrets of mental health all in real time, all safely. Because to truly understand the mind, we do not need more of bigger, bulkier machines. All we need is light, diamonds, and a new way to see. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Would an audience member like to ask a question about this research? We'll turn to the judges for a question.
I wondered on the capacity to look at deeper brain signals rather than those just in the layers.
Pardon, can you please repeat that?
The deeper brain signals,
yes,
to get a full picture, is it just surface activity of the brain? In the cortices?
Indeed. So, actually, since we have not tested that it's going to be just the surface brain activity, but in theory, yes. But I could be able to give you the exact answer once we actually have the helmet for that one. Yeah. Thank you.
Great work, Sachin.
Thank you.
And last but not least is Aniket Nadkarni. Aniket is from the Faculty of Health and Medical Sciences and will be presenting The Future is Not So Sweet.
To understand the future of blood sugar control, we first need to take a step back in time. It's January 1922, and Leonard Thompson, a 14-year-old boy with diabetes, is in a Toronto ICU. His blood sugars are sky high. In fact, Leonard's dying. He'll become the first person in history to receive a life-saving injection of insulin after his doctors isolated the hormone from a dog. Without this discovery, people like Leonard wouldn't live long enough to attend university, enroll in a PhD, or sit in an auditorium listening to this 3-minute thesis. Managing blood sugars is particularly tricky in critically ill people in the ICU. It's common for blood sugars to go haywire, even in people without diabetes. And when this happens, the chance of complications goes up. As we fast forward to the future, the Gila monster lizard offers a new hope. A protein in its saliva allows it to maintain near constant blood sugar levels, even though it only eats 5 times a year. This protein is almost identical to a human hormone, GLP-1. Let's call it GLP-1. GLP-1 has 3 very desirable characteristics. It maintains stable blood sugar profiles, it doesn't cause low blood sugar, and it even works well when the body is struggling with failing organs, a major concern for ICU patients. I'm running a study for ICU patients with high blood sugar. My patients will either receive standard of care insulin or GLP-1. I expect GLP-1 will provide stable blood sugar control while avoiding dangerous swings and low blood sugar. This world-first trial will provide compelling evidence for GLP-1 as a safe and effective alternative first-line treatment for high blood sugar. Almost half of the 200,000 people admitted to ICUs around Australia each year suffer from high blood sugar. They've got an increased risk of dying, and those that survive are more likely to develop diabetes, so improved treatments are urgently needed. It's not so much a boxing match as it is a race, and Team Insulin has had a head start by more than 100 years. Join me in rooting for Team GLP-1 as we look to a future that isn't sickly sweet.
Thanks, Aniket. Who would like to ask tonight's last question?
Thank you for your talk. I can see that it could be helpful for patients with diabetes. But I wanted to ask you about how you felt about the millions and billions of people that are using these drugs for weight control. Is it going to be good for weight control?
Thanks for that great question. That is a $1 million question because drugs that use the hormone GLP-1 are very prevalent worldwide now. They've certainly shown to have some benefit. I think the reality of what the full consequences of that will play out, I think, in the years to come. So I look forward to being able to answer that question for you. Thanks.
Let's hear it for Aniket. Thanks, presenters. You all did such an amazing job. While the judges make their decision, we would like to hear from you for our People's Choice Award. So please prepare your phones to cast your vote. On the next slide, a QR code will appear. Scan it using your camera and a website called Slido will come up prompting you to place your vote. If you don't have a smartphone or are unable to scan the QR code, please come to the front where we will count your vote manually. Remember, like our excellent judges, we want you to base your decision on our 2 categories, comprehension and content, and engagement and communication. Did you understand it, and did you think it was cool? For people online, a QR will appear on the screen. Now, everybody please place your votes. We will have a short break while the judges deliberate and while we tally the People's Choice votes. And for those watching online, please also stay tuned for the results. We have received the results. I invite all contestants to the stage. First, we'd like to congratulate all of our finalists, Gerardo Urbina, Ranjani Ragatham, Danielle Bailey, Shrestha Malik, Caitlin Crawford, Anae Kritzinger, Kate Cheney, Gusha Yildirim, Sachin Kumar, and Aniket Nadkarni. Please join me in congratulating them. And now for the People's Choice Award. The winner is Anae Kritzinger. Next, we have the Judges' Choice runner-up. And the winner is Sachin Kumar. And for the 2025 Three Minute Thesis winner, Anae Kritzinger. Congratulations once again, not only to our winners, but to everyone who presented tonight. You all did a fantastic job and your research is amazing. And thank you all for being a special part of tonight's event. Don't forget, Research Tuesdays resumes as per normal next month, so please check the Research Tuesdays website for more information. Thank you and good night.